All right, boys and girls. Wild card weekend in the books, except for one more game. We got Minnesota and the Rams tomorrow night, Monday night. Hopping on to do a quick stream. Want to talk about some of the weekend's events, some of the stuff with our GM head coaching, jazz and whatnot. But the main reason I want to talk tonight is some rumors coming out of just space in general. No one specifically from any organization necessarily talking about this, or I shouldn't say the Steelers aren't talking about this. We haven't heard anything from anyone inside, but we've heard a team called to inquire about a trade for one Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin, 18 years with the Steelers. Could he be out? Could he be traded? Could he be released from his contract? What winds up happening? Would you take Mike Tomlin as the Jets head coach? I put a poll question in the chat. Do you want Mike Tomlin as head coach? Yes, I'd trade for him. Yes, only if he's released. No, I don't want him. You guys could vote on the poll question. And look, I'll be honest, this is a very weird kind of conversation because as Jet fans, we are not in a position to be picky about certain things. Like head coach, we just lost Vrabel to the Patriots. And Liam Cohen and Todd Monken, Cliff Kingsbury, and Ben Johnson, all the offensive young guys don't really want to have it with us. Or at least it doesn't seem like that because the Jets didn't inquire about him. And we heard Johnson wasn't going to interview. We heard Monken was upset about the 2019 interview and all that stuff. But you got fans. You got 17% of fans in here saying, nah, I don't want Mike Tomlin. Why would people say that? Why would people say that? This guy's been a coach for 18 years in Pittsburgh. They've got, 5 coaches in their history? We got 5 coaches in the last 15 years, probably. You got Rex, Bowles, Gase, Saleh, Ulbrich. Boom. 5 right there. So we've probably had 6 since he's been the head coach of the Steelers. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. Boys and girls, this stream powered by BetUS. If you want to help support the channel, head over to BetUS. Get a 150% bonus match on your first deposit up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. Boys and girls, these are the Jets' regular season opponents for the 2025/2026 season. And I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think the Jets' record will ultimately end up being? We don't know who our quarterback's going to be. Is Rodgers going to be back? We don't know who our head coach is going to be. We've heard rumors. We don't know who the GM is. This is tough. You got the AFC North, got the NFC South, maybe trending up, maybe not. Depends how Penix handles. Panthers look like they're going to be a little bit stronger. Buccaneers looking pretty good outside of a fumble by Baker Mayfield tonight. I did not think the Jets are going to do very well next season. I do think that Rodgers is going to retire. I have the Jets penciled in for a 5-12 season next year. I do not think it's going to be very good. I think we split with the Dolphins and Patriots. I think we lose both games to the Bills. I think we split the AFC North. I think we can beat the Browns and the Steelers. I think we can beat the Falcons. I think we could beat the Saints. And then I think we're going to lose a whole lot more games. So boys and girls, let me know your record predictions down below. And as always, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Boys and girls, I want to get into your thoughts, your comments. I'll pull your comments up on screen. But one thing that I think a lot of people are talking about in regards to Mike Tomlin, why people might be frustrated with him. It's like they get to 10 wins and they just kind of coast and they turn off. That's the criticism. I'm looking at Twitter and I'm seeing a ton of Steelers fans just up a wall, furious. And you can't always listen to the loudest person in the room. Loudest person in the room isn't necessarily the correct person in the room. A lot of times it's just someone yelling. And Twitter is very much that. Very much amplified things. But it's interesting when you start looking at how this team has performed in his tenure, at least the last little bit here. He's never had a losing record, but the last 5 playoff appearances that he's had, it has not even been competitive. He's been blown the hell out. Last night's game, 28-14, was the closest game he's had. in his last 5 games. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Now, that being said, the Jets have had 1 winning season. Is that right? 1 winning season since 2010? 2015 would have been our only winning season, I think. Would I take winning seasons for the last 18 years? You damn right I would. Damn right I would. But if you want to sit on your high horse and you want to say, oh, well, the whole point is to win a Super Bowl. And I don't think Mike Tomlin can do that for you. That's what the criticism is from Steelers fans right now. Like, obviously, he's got a ring already, but the team itself, over his tenure, you could argue maybe there's some little pieces that should have been better. You had Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Big Ben in their prime. Should have probably won more than he did. But this is a culture, dude. Think about all the chaos between, like, all those players, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and, like, the crazy stuff that always happened with those players outside of the Steelers. Mike Tomlin was able to bottle that up. This dude's a culture dude. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Is that the saying, right? Steelers, they're looking like, oh, I'm done with them. We haven't won enough. We've only constantly been in position to win every single year, at least in the regular season. It's absolutely crazy that people would say they do not want Mike Tomlin, especially as a Jet fan. It's absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. Mike Tomlin is a culture changer. How many seasons have we seen him go in with, like, no quarterback or the shell of Big Ben? Big Ben retired, 2021? Pickett was brought in 22. Hasn't really had a quarterback. And not to mention, like, the way they are losing, like, these games. You lose to Lamar. I don't know about you guys, but I think Lamar's about to win his 3rd MVP. Guy's kind of good. Josh Allen, that cat's all right. In the running for MVP this year. Very well might win it if Lamar doesn't get it. You got Patrick Mahomes down there. Browns in 2020. Who was the quarterback in 2020? Baker? That had to be Baker, right? 28-0. That's probably not great. But Baker this year and last year, Baker has the most regular season touchdowns. So, like, Baker's not a bad quarterback. Jaguars 2017, probably a little frustrating because that would have been the Blake Bortles year, if I'm not mistaken, right? Where they kind of popped off. They went to the AFC Championship game. They wound up losing to the Patriots. Is that right? I feel like that's right. I don't know. Steelers fans got a lot of piss and vinegar for Mike Tomlin right now. But I'll tell you what. I would take any of this. Any of this in the last bunch of years. Boys and girls, talk some sense into these Steelers fans. Blitz Crew comes in, says, trade for him. The man knows how to run a team. We'll figure out how to win the playoffs after we get there. Yeah, right? That's the whole conversation that has to happen. Jets haven't made the playoffs since 2010. You think I'm going to be upset that we have a winning record and get into the playoffs? Once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. Literally anything can happen. Jets backed their way into the playoffs with Rex Ryan in 2009. Remember, the only reason the Jets got in is because the Colts rested starters and the Jets snuck into the playoffs. And as soon as we were in, you catch fire. 2 years in a row, you go on road playoff, consecutive weeks in the playoffs, and you win games. And damn it, one of those 2 years, the Jets team should have been good enough, especially that second year. 2010 year, I thought the Jets were going to have it. Thought the Jets had it that year. You're telling me we get Mike Tomlin, he could get us to the playoffs like damn near every year in the AFC North? Like the toughest division in the AFC? AFC West creeping up as well. Y'all's Pittsburgh fans are nuts. Absolutely crazy if you think you would want to trade him. Wild Wave. We haven't won in 8 years. It's been a fun ride. We haven't had a winning season in 8 years, is what you're saying. Not even just the playoffs. Yo, what's up, Jake? He says, I need Tomlin coaching the New York Jets more than I need air. Could you imagine if this actually becomes a thing? If there's enough, I feel like the last few years, it's been discussed, like, trade possibilities and whatnot for Mike Tomlin. And then you have, you look at the history of the Steelers, and they have, 5 head coaches. So it winds up being a big nothing burger, each and every year. So what winds up happening? Blitz Crew, not Blitz Crew, responding to Blitz Crew. Mutt Viles says 16 years with a 500 winning record. I will take him any day. The offense for the Steelers sucked this year. No shock they got blown out by Baltimore. Baltimore is just an absolute juggernaut. Absolute juggernaut. And I agree. Look, Russ didn't look that good last night. Fields, I know I've said I want Fields for next year, but I know he's not really the quarterback you want, in the playoffs right now. He had them winning some games early on. Not necessarily him. Winning in spite of him. Kenny Pickett's not a good quarterback. The hell's he doing right now? He's back up for the Eagles, right? Jalen Hurts. He's winning with subpar quarterback play, boys and girls. Subpar quarterback play. Mutt Viles says Tomlin, Flores, or Glenn. Get it done, Jets. Yeah, look, I don't think Tomlin's getting moved. Based on who the Steelers are, I would be very, very surprised if they made a move to move on from Flores or Glenn, though. It's an interesting conversation. It's an interesting conversation. I got some slides pulled up. We can talk about them. Get some thoughts. But by and large, Mike Tomlin, he becomes available. Go make it happen. All right, let's see. So let's talk a little bit about, not necessarily some news, but some rumblings across the Twitterverse. We got Connor Hughes, Zach Rosenblatt, and Rich Cimini all thinking that the Jets are going to be going with the threesome of Ryan Grigson for GM, Brian Flores for head coach, Josh McCown as OC. I don't hate it. I don't love Grigson, I'll be honest. That doesn't make me feel great. Colts GM, 2012 to 2016, drafted Andrew Luck, couldn't put an offensive line in front of Andrew Luck, wound up not really forcing, but making Andrew Luck opt into an early retirement at 29. This guy was on a Hall of Fame track based on the yards and stats that he was putting up. Brilliant kid. Ended him. They traded a first-round pick for Trent Richardson. For those of you too young to remember who Trent Richardson was, he was not good. He was not good. Play Like a Jet had a great tweet. Scott Mason. In 2012, Trent Richardson had two surgeries on his knees. Averaged a paltry 3.6 yards per carry his rookie year in Cleveland. Questions surfaced about his work ethic. Showed up for his second year, 15 pounds overweight. Despite this, Ryan Grigson traded a first-round pick. 2 years later, Trent Richardson was gone. That, not a good trade. when you're looking at your GM checklist, things that are done. We went from Joe Douglas, who was the all-time best trade maker, to the guy that traded for fat Trent Richardson. Potentially. If you believe what the beat's saying right now. Or maybe they're trying to throw us off the trail and we're actually going with the Aaron Glenn approach. Pat McAfee did not have very nice things to say about Ryan Grigson. McAfee was on that team. They wind up having, they win one game the year they drafted Luck? Or the year before they drafted Luck. Grigson comes in, tears up the whole culture, ruins the Colts culture is what they're saying. He's like, we're going to build it up. Not even realizing that like the 1 year, that one really bad year without Peyton, that's like not the one you count, right? You round that one off. They had a ton of winning seasons before that. The winning culture for the Colts was there. He came in, completely gutted it. He cut a bunch of people, brought in a bunch of outside free agents. Lots of people upset at Ryan Grigson over in Indianapolis. That being said, players' agents like working with him. Drew Rosenhaus had some really nice things to say about him. They were talking about the idea of Grigson and Flores pairing up. Here's what McAfee and Drew Rosenhaus had to say.
I dealt with Ryan Grigson when he was with the Colts. We got deals done for guys like T.Y. Hilton at the time, which was his first extension. I've seen him work with the Vikings as their assistant GM, working with 𝐂𝐲𝐳, the general manager. The Vikings brought in Aaron Jones, Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard. They extended our guy, Josh Metellus. They extended Christian Darrisaw. They brought back Dalton Reisner. We like dealing with the Vikings, and the reason for that is Coach Flores. Coach Flores is a stud. If someone can get Grigson and Flores as a package,
I think that's being pitched right now, isn't it?
You're going to win.
That's being talked about. I don't know about it being pitched, but I think that's being talked about.
Grigson's a stud.
And they both are coming off of first time, not going how we wanted to. What did we learn?
So talking about Ryan Grigson, Brian Flores, the pairing being better this time around. Better this time around. Now, earlier on in that conversation, McAfee does talk about how he had an interaction with Grigson, and they kind of aired each other's grievances out and had a good conversation. He said the way he had the conversation with Pat McAfee, or even that the conversation happened at all, leads itself to Grigson growing from his first opportunity. And he thinks that he could be better the second time around. Drew Rosenhaus obviously has some skin in the game. He's got a bunch of players that are going to need to get re-signed. I don't know how many players he has on the Jets, but I would think, whether it's his agency or other agencies, if agents like working with Grigson, we got Sauce, Garrett, Brees, JJ, AVT, all these dudes coming up for contracts. Be nice to have someone in the building that can get these contracts done. Is that Grigson? Is that Grigson? The next piece of the puzzle, the the head coach, Brian Flores, potentially coming in. Jets lose out on Mike Vrabel. Flores was number 2 on my list. Former head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Had a lot of discipline down in Miami for his 3 years, 2019 through 2021. The Dolphins ranked 29th, 30th, and 14th in penalties. The worst this guy has done is league average in penalties. That's delightful. The Jets were first in penalties this year. First in penalties. Each year, he exceeds expectations or comes very close. 2019, that team down in Miami was supposed to be winless. He gets them 5 wins. 2020, they're over-under before the season, projected to be 6 wins. He gets them 10. 2021, 9 wins to 9 wins. Not ideal. They started the season, I think it was like 1-7 or something like that. Really not good. But down the stretch, final 9 games goes 8-1. 8-1 to end the season, then they fired his ass. That's crazy. He's a tough guy to work for. Tough guy to work for. Tough guy to work with. Demands excellence. The defense is under Flores with the Vikings for 2 years. He came in, they were 24th prior to him getting there. They jumped to 11th. This year, they're up to 2nd. Not too shabby, Mr. Brian Flores. He comes in here, restores the Jets to former glory. I feel like there's an attitude. I hate the Dolphins. I hate the Dolphins. I hate the Dolphins. I want my coach to equally hate the Dolphins. But, like, also be coaching, like, within the last decade. Rex, I love you, but sorry. I'm glad to hear your name's no longer in the conversation, according to Connor Hughes. Now, the issues under Flores, I said before, he's a tough cat to get along with. He had 5 offensive coordinators in 3 years, 4 offensive line coaches. Like, hell, I really like Josh McCown. I'm willing to roll the dice on this. But, like, his ass is going to be out before the end of the year. Like, that's what this dude's averaging. Like, this part scares the shit out of me. Hire the right dudes. Hopefully now that he's in, like, an environment that has an offensive kind of coaching staff with Kevin O'Connell, he kind of has the right pieces to go into his next role, if you will. Tua had a lot of issues with Brian Flores. Tua actually encouraged teammates, or basically encouraged, I think is actually what the quote is, basically encouraged teammates to vote someone else for team captain just so Tua did not have to interact with Brian Flores more. That's not great. That is not ideal. That does not sound like a very environmentally friendly take for a quarterback to have with his head coach. That's not the relationship I want to see. That is an adversarial relationship. Then you got Fitz's comments from, I mean, I don't even know when this was. Was this last week? We looked at it last week. I don't know when the comments were actually from, but he played on those teams. Ryan Fitzpatrick did. And said there's not a coach on that staff or a player that would go to bat for him. It's burning bridges. Not great, but people learn from their mistakes. He's been out of the game, 3 years now as head coach? 1 year linebackers coach with the Steelers under Tomlin. 2 years with the Vikings. A little bit of self-reflection time. Not a bad thing. Julio says Tomlin gets bought out of his contract. He's taking a year off to be a TV analyst. The guy is burned out. Yeah, he looks like he really needs to sleep. Like he always looks stressed all the time. I think if he does get out of his contract and if he's not going to coach in Pittsburgh anymore, I think he is going to take a year off. Famous coaches, Andy Reid did not take a year off, went Philadelphia to Kansas City immediately. Bill Belichick took a year off. I don't know if that was by his own doing, though. Very well could have been everyone else saying, hey, look, you're kind of not it, so, like, sorry. Who was the other one? I had one other one in there. Sean Payton took a year off as well. I'm sure there's other countless examples we could go through. I think the best route for him would be to take that year off if he is no longer the Steelers coach. And then after Daboll gets fired and Shane get fired from New York, then he fits in with the Giants. The Mara family and the... what's the Steelers family? Why am I drawing a blank on the name? Drawing a blank. Very close. Very close. So I could see that. I think he will take a year off and then see where he goes from there. Jimmy Jett says, there was a report that Vrabel would be interested in bringing in Saleh as his defensive coordinator. Thoughts? It's just a kick in the balls. That's what it is. It's a kick in the balls. And you know what? Saleh should probably do it to spite us. It's just like, if that's what he does, Saleh's a really good defensive coordinator. Vrabel's a smart coach. I don't blame him at all for going that route. And he's also a Patriot now. So, like, oh, let me just, like, stick the knife in the Jets. I just decline them, and I'm just going to, like, let it twist. Like, that's the part of me that wants Aaron Glenn. He doesn't want any part of these guys. Ugh. Thoughts on that? I think it's probably good. Julio says I could see that. Rafi says Thomas Dimitroff as GM. Aaron Glenn as head coach. McCown as OC. Yes, I like this pairing a lot. Mainly because I really like Aaron Glenn. And his pedigree from, like, scout and player through the Jets on up through the coaching ranks. I like that. I'd roll the dice on that. That he could be an actually, like, a CEO. Make everyone work together. With Flores, I get concerned that he's just going to piss so many people off. You got to have, like, good cop, bad cop with him and McCown. And I like Dimitroff. I like Dimitroff a lot more than Grigson. I don't know why they wouldn't go with Dimitroff with Flores and McCown. Like, that would be nice. Unless Flores just says, I only want to work with Grigson. How How long has Grigson been over there? I got to look it up. 2 years? 3 years? 2022. So he's been there like the same amount of time as Brian Flores. I think Flores got there in 2002 or no, 3-4. No, sorry, 2023, 2024. So he was there 1 year ahead of time. So maybe he had some kind of say in like getting this guy recruited over there after he got there. I don't know. Maybe that's why there's that thought of having them come together. But Rafi, I like your take as well. Now, before I go through the comment section and really dive through everything, I want to give you guys my final thoughts on this little pairing that we got going on. Josh McCown. Is there a more experienced rookie offensive coordinator than Uncle Josh? 12 different teams he played on. That's a lot of offenses. 14 different offensive coordinators. Some highlight names in there. Different OCs, Mike Marks, Greg Knapp, RIP, John DeFilippo, Pep Hamilton, John Morton, Doug Peterson. There's a few names in there that I like. Not to mention this whole list of quarterbacks that he's worked with. Like, there is a reason he was on 12 teams. And there's a reason owners and GMs kept bringing him in when there were other young kids playing. It's because he takes players under his wing. He's always been a very nurturing, kind of compassionate player. There's a reason why the Jets paid him a ton of money to be the backup for Sam Darnold. The Jets tried to do it the right way. They know this guy is good for the quarterback room. Jake Plummer, Kurt Warner, granted those guys were older by the time. That was when he first started his career. Matt Leinart early on in his career. Dante Culpepper, that would have been later on, I guess. Jamarcus Russell when he gets into the league. Jake Delhomme with the Panthers. Although I think at that point he was probably like 30. Jay Cutler, Mike Glennon, Johnny Manziel, RG3 when he went to the Browns. Deshaun Watson, Sam Darnold. Like, I'm telling you, there's a reason GMs and head coaches put this guy around their young quarterbacks. I think he is the quarterback guru that we want. Does he know how to call plays? I have no idea. I'm not sure. But damn it, I'm willing to let it play out. Coached under Frank Reich and Kevin O'Connell, two guys that are very good at calling plays. I'm willing to roll that dice. If this guy's capable of learning all these different offenses across year to year to year to year to year, he's got to be something special. Now, I came across this video of Johnny Manziel talking about Josh McCown. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Thought this was really interesting. Uncle Josh coming through for Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel obviously didn't have a very good NFL career, but man, that is the way I want my quarterback coach, my offensive coordinator, the guy in charge of my quarterback. He's got his dude's back. Ah, man, I really want Josh McCown. For all those people that are like frustrated with like Brian Flores and like Grigson and all that, man, if we could just figure out the quarterback. If you can get the quarterback right, if Josh McCown could do that for us, fucking can whoever you got to can and make McCown the head coach. I don't care. Like, I'm willing to roll the dice. I don't know what it's going to be. Are you going to wind up getting Flores? Are you going to wind up getting Aaron Glenn? Which guy makes their decision first, right? I think Minnesota is probably more likely to get bounced from the playoffs before the Lions. So I guess Flores would probably be making his decision first. That'd be weird as shit if we were like, well, you know what? We're going to wait till Aaron Glenn's out and then have a decision made. How quick do you have to make it? GM, I think, is going to get made pretty fast. If it's Grigson, you know where they're headed. They're not going to go Grigson and then Aaron Glenn. That's the part that you got to make sure you pay attention to. And polar opposites. Talk about your friggin' coaching staff. Do you want the guy that's like team friendly or player friendly and relationship driven in Aaron Glenn? Or do you want the guy that's like piss and vinegar and like pissed off all the time in Brian Flores? We just came from the really nice and warm and fuzzy approach with Salah, so maybe this is the pendulum going back the other way. Maybe that's what winds up happening here. Boys and girls, make sure you hit that like button if you're hanging out in here. Got 200 people in the stream on at midnight. Sunday into Monday night after Wild Card Weekend. I appreciate y'all being in here. Let's go through some of your comment questions, stuff going through the chat. Jimmy says, I am done waiting on GM decision. Just hire someone now. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. We'll find out this pretty short order, I would think. Singletary was a great linebacker and a terrible coach. Different roles, sir. It's true. Great players don't always make great coaches. Eddie, McCown never called a game. It's an art. We don't know if he can. Is he any good? No history. Everyone's got to have history at some point, right? Like, if you have to have a rookie play caller at some level, having this much experience is about as like good as you can get for your first-time play caller. Now, I guess you could have play calling experience in college and coming up through like other sorts of ranks, but man, at the pro level, McCown knows some people. He knows what it takes to be a good quarterback. Not that he could perform to the good quarterback level, like the echelon you need, but there's a reason he hung around the league so long. Billy says, this is why I don't like having Tannenbaum involved in any of this. It does make me feel uncomfortable. Tyrone saying, oh, where's my... Sorry. Oh, this just shut off? Where's my reset? There we go. Sorry, just got to restart something on this side. Stream was freaking out. Freaking out, man. All right. We're up and running. Still need a draft guy. Maybe. Right? I don't trust Grigson to be the GM. Like, I would definitely think Grigson is a downgrade from Joe Douglas as far as GM's concerned. Now, maybe second time around, things are a lot better. Heck, Andy Reid's winning Super Bowls his second time around. Bill Belichick winning Super Bowls his second time around. I feel like there needs to be a major asterisk on both those. McCown being under Kevin O'Connell is really interesting. I think it is. I also think it's interesting that Sam Darnold is having success with McCown again. Like, I think when you look at Sam's career, obviously he had the longest sample size kind of under as a Jet. Then I think he was 2 years in Carolina. Is that right? 4 or 5? I think it was 2 years. And then 1 year in San Francisco and then going to Minnesota. Clearly there's a connection there. McCown is OC, Glenn is head coach. I would love it. Doesn't seem like that's where it's going to go, though. There are no other quarterbacks. What are you talking about, Najee? NYC Superfan says, if Glenn, who is the defensive coordinator, hired, do we keep Ulbrich? I don't think we'd keep Ulbrich. I feel like that would be surprising for me. I think you just need to clean the whole organization. Just coaching staff top down. Swap everyone out. So for me, if Aaron Glenn is the head coach, I would maybe see if you get Dennis Allen, right? Former Saints head coach. I think that's right. He was a defensive guy, I thought. Secondary coach. Yeah, so he was the D coordinator while Aaron Glenn was down in as the defensive backs coach for the Saints. I can see that. I think for offensive coordinator, if you assuming you're not going to get McCown for if you were to get Aaron Glenn, John Morton's an interesting name. Maybe one of the passing game coordinator guys for the Lions. I get the feeling Ben Johnson's going to go down to the Raiders. If he goes to the Raiders, how much staff is he pulling with him? And who believes if they don't follow him, he could have success, or like that next guy, like maybe it's the pass game coordinator, stays in Detroit to be the new OC or something like that. It might be tough to pull people away from the offensive side of the ball for the Lions. Listen, if we went with Josh McCown as head coach, Lou Anarumo as DC, I wouldn't necessarily be complaining. I guess McCown as head coach is like a situational awareness kind of thing. And then I guess you get a play caller in here. I'm just concerned that, like, even though he's played on a bunch of teams, does he have enough coaching connections to do that? He might. I mean, he was interviewed for head coach. This will be his second time, right? Interviewed with the Texans. I don't think he's had any others than that. Stu says, I want Aaron Glenn as head coach. John Morton as OC. I'm assuming your JM is John Morton. Spielman as GM. Yes. Yes, Stu. That would be I like Spielman a lot. If you get Spielman as the executive and then have like Dimitroff as GM, that would kind of be what I would like. We need this. Two guys that are bringing in a winning culture, attitude, and expectations of greatness. Bring homegrown New York Jet home. Talking about Aaron Glenn. Yeah, there is a love for that too, right? Like a nostalgic, like, I just want the guy that wants us. Billy says, running around with coordinators, they're all fantastic. Going to change the organization, make the Super Bowl, all of them. And they were all losers. Well, hey, Brian Flores, former head coach, I think everyone kind of exceeded expectation. Not everyone. Most players exceeded expectation, or that roster exceeded expectation down in Miami. We could use a little exceeding expectation up here. Brooklyn guy, too. Pump of Wall Street says, sorry, last time I checked, Woody owns the team. What difference does any of this make? Honestly, it may not make a difference at all. The fish rots from the head, and Woody Johnson is the head of the fish, unfortunately. Did Grigson go to rehab for ruining a Hall of Fame quarterback? I mean, he did leave Indianapolis 3 years before that happened. So maybe it was the next guy that did it. Sonny Miller, Ryan, you're the best. Love your show. Thanks, Sonny. I'm going to have you call in at some point. I said this was going to be a call-in show with the live chat, but I'm not going to answer the phone. Just going to talk to the chat tonight. What happens with Ulbrich? I think Ulbrich becomes the DC of the 49ers. I think that's what's going to happen. And Sal will get his choice of DC wherever he wants to be. I don't think he's going to get the head coaching job for the Jaguars. And I think maybe, was he getting interviewed by the Raiders too? Is that right? I think he takes a year before coming back to being a head coach, if that. S. Willis. Ryan, how do you feel about Kyle McCord out of Syracuse? I'll be honest, I have not watched anything of him. So I will have to watch. I would love to give you an honest take, but that is it right now. Stu says, Oreo, we still have Aaron Rodgers. Statistically, he had a great year. If our D could have stopped a nosebleed, we may have won 7 or 8 more games. I would like to see Aaron come back, I think. I'm kind of indifferent as to, I won't be upset if he decides to retire. I don't really want to see him say, like, I want to keep playing, and the Jets have this whole, like, back and forth, and then he winds up being, like, really good somewhere else. I hope he either retires or is a Jet next season. That's my preference. But my expectations, if he is a Jet, are going to be a lot lower. I'm not going to set my expectations to, like, Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. You know, I'm expecting at least what we got this past year, but sadly that was not enough in and of itself a lot of the time. Defense next year is going to be better. I think Jermaine Johnson takes a year to come back, really. I think the middle of that core, D-line, interior defensive line, linebacking core is Sherwood coming back. Safeties, who are your safeties going to be for next year? All questions that you got to ask. Najee says, Boyer has to come back, and Middleton. I actually think that will probably happen. I don't know about Middleton, but Boyer I think does, because McCown worked with Boyer. I shouldn't say he worked with Boyer, but he was on the same team as Boyer back in 2017 under Bulls. So I could see them retaining him. Dr. Cornelius, take a hard look at keeping Ulbrich. I don't want to keep Ulbrich. Sorry. Defense stunk after Salah got canned. Wild Wave, all these GMs are downgrades compared to Joe Douglas. Only one who might be close, and I use close loosely, is Mike Borgonzi. Look, I think there's going to be plenty of GM candidates that could be better than Joe Douglas. I don't think Ryan Grigson's one of them. Ryan Grigson is the one that I have a little bit of an issue with. Chris Spielman, I like from the Lions, but he has never been a GM, and he's never like done the shopping for the groceries, as far as I'm aware. Maybe like encourage people to make certain decisions or certain hires of coaches and whatnot. That's why I thought maybe the executive role would be good for him. But yeah, I think a lot of these GMs are probably not as attractive as what Joe Douglas was, especially at the time we got Joe Douglas. I feel like that was like an up and coming, GM that everyone was hyped about. Brian says Spielman, Glenn, and then trade for Hendon Hooker. How old's Hooker now? I'm not going to Google just Hooker. He's 26. It'd be nice if they liked him and they thought he could play well. I guess the tip would be like, okay, does Ben Johnson try to trade for him wherever he goes? So that way he's got like a guy that can teach his new quarterback the ins and outs. If he doesn't want Hendon Hooker, then maybe we don't want Hendon Hooker. That might be how we see things play out. I think you can't underestimate the impact of playing in like 15 different systems for a quarterback coach and quarterback developer. I would have been stoked for McCown, or I would be so stoked for McCown. Definitely a risk. Won't argue with anyone, but I like. Yeah, look, that's my thing with McCown. Lots of different teams he played with, lots of different quarterbacks he played with, lots of different offensive coordinators he played with. I think the gamble is, I'm willing to take that gamble. I really am. Ted saying bring in McCown and let him develop Jordan Travis for 2026. That would be really cool. I didn't even really consider that. That side of things didn't even click in my head. Maybe we're gonna have Aaron Rodgers come back for a second season or second full season, and then they just work behind the scenes with Jordan Travis. Oreo, they're talking on ESPN essentially saying how embarrassing the Jets have interviewed 15 people for this job and will continue to interview. LOL, crazy to think about it. Is it embarrassing that the Jets have interviewed that many people? Maybe. I think the concern is that we just don't know who's going to say yes and who's going to say no, right? We're not going to offer Vrabel the job if he's just going to laugh at us. Clearly he goes to the Patriots. The Jets went back last hour, or what is that? The final last few minutes deadline, whatever, before he signed with them. Oh, can you do anything? We want to keep you here. Gets awkward. How many interviews can you have before it starts getting to the point where you're like, all right, this is too many interviews here? I like that they're casting a wide net. I think it's good that you talk to Flores and you talk to McCown, both as head coach candidates, even though I don't think McCown's going to be the head coach. Not immediately, at least. Maybe if things go sideways real quick. That's another benefit too, right? If you don't like Flores a whole crazy ton, but you have Flores and McCown paired up, it seems like the Jets really like McCown, a lot. So if things were to go sideways, you could at least keep the regime relatively intact with McCown taking over. Not that I'm thinking about firing our next head coach before they've even won or lost as a game. Just trying to walk people back off the edge. NYC Superfan, who are the holdovers? White, Cotton, and Boyer. I mean, that would be cool if you brought both of them back, right? I'd like to see that. It depends who we have, right? Like, does Flores want to bring in people? I theorized Marcus Dixon as our defensive coordinator, which actually I'm just realizing I didn't tell you guys that. But I think Marcus Dixon, or did I? Did I say it in my last video? I may have. I made a mock offseason that I felt like I kind of rambled on, so I might have to reshoot it and redo it. But I'll get that up in the next little bit. I actually had us with Dimitroff, Flores, McCown, and Dixon for the Vikings side GM structure, plus that whole offseason. And then I did one with Spielman, Aaron Glenn, John Morton, Dennis Allen for like a Lions take. So it was like, here's my Lions offseason, here's my Vikings coaching staff offseason. Zachary asking, isn't Chris Spielman new to the front office of 2020 to now? Yes, he is. He does not have a lot of experience. That's my concern with him as a GM potential candidate. Julio. Jerry Dulock reporting the Steelers aren't planning to move Tomlin. He's under contract till 2027. Things could change. Yeah, look, the Jets weren't trading Jamal Adams, and OBJ was going to stay a Giant for life, and, you know, every cliche you could possibly say, no one's actually going to get traded until they're traded. So I feel like the Steelers, because of the organization that they are, would probably be more inclined to say, like, okay, hey, Tomlin take a year off, do a reset kind of a thing, come back, and then they do the Sean Payton trade next year. I don't think the Jets are going to be in on it because of the timing is going to be a little off. That would be my guess. Stu, exactly, Ryan. I want who wants us, and Josh McCown as OC. I don't want the Jets to overthink this. Soon as Glenn is available for the second interview, lock him up. I'm so torn on Aaron Glenn because I feel like he's a leader of men, and I want him to be like the head coach because I really like him. Like, I could look at Flores, I'd be like, that guy's a dick. Like, he's not nice. He doesn't play well in the sandbox with others. He's gonna steal someone else's truck or like their ice cream cone. Whatever. But Aaron Glenn seems like he's going to like teach you how to get your own ice cream cone. I really like Aaron Glenn. The Hard Knocks clips of him are just so good. They're so good. Him dropping F-bombs in the Lions team meeting over just a regular practice. Like, this isn't even a game footage. This is like training camp footage or practice or whatever. Bitching up a storm. Love it. Holding guys accountable without, like, degrading them. I worry that going with Flores could be, like, nuclear, like a powder keg. Just boom, Wile E. Coyote style. Fuse. Where, like, Aaron Glenn, it might feel good and we might have the vibes, but, like, the resume from a head coach perspective isn't quite there. I don't necessarily think like the Lions are a great defense. He's had some great defensive performances, and he's doing well with a lot of injuries on that team. But like, I feel like there's a lot of times that Lions defense doesn't look great. So you're kind of like banking on the leadership of the guy more than like the coordinator side of him, which might be all right. Because if you don't want him calling plays, then maybe that's what winds up happening. He doesn't wind up calling plays. Do I see any position coaches worth keeping? Yes, we went over that. Pump of Wall Street. All these candidates suck. Jets are a year behind every time when it comes to quarterbacks or coaches. I wanted Dan Quinn, but we went Bowles. We should have fired Sal last year and snagged Dan Quinn this year. Or even Vrabel, right? Like, the Rodgers getting hurt really hurt this team because we weren't able to move off Sal earlier than we may have otherwise wanted to. I think even Douglas, for that matter, too. I think if the team did not look good last year with Rodgers fully healthy, last year meaning 2023, then you have a new regime for 2024. Maybe things go differently. I really think coaching was a huge issue for the Jets this year. And kicking. But like huge, huge issue. Paris says, I'm done with Aaron Rodgers. The only Aaron who should be on the Jets next season is Aaron Glenn as head coach. Oreo. If Rodgers comes back and we lose Garrett Wilson because of it, I don't want it. I'd be so upset. If I'm the new head coach coming in and I know Aaron Rodgers is going to play one more year, like that's kind of the conversations you wind up having. Like, hey, look, maybe he won't even say one more year. He'll just be like, hey, look, I'm going to play a year. But like as a Jets team, it's probably detrimental to have him on it longer than that because of how many years you're kicking off the salary cap for. You go up to Garrett and you say, Garrett, you're the future of this team. You got to learn to play nice with Aaron Rodgers. One more season. You're going to get your looks. You're going to get your touches. He's a little bit of a prick. He likes the pseudoscience stuff, whatever. He likes ayahuasca. Might be upset that like he's kind of a jerk sometimes. You don't get along with him. But suck it up. You're the future. Aaron's your quarterback for next year. That's what I would tell Garrett. We're not trading you. Sorry. Schottenheimer was the OC. He was around a few years prior. I think you're talking to someone else in the chat, and I don't know. I think that's what you're doing. I don't know if I touched on that. What's your opinion on this? If it happened, we trade Rodgers and the 7th pick to Cleveland or Tennessee, and we draft Sanders or Ward, how would you feel about that and the chance of it actually happening? First off, no one's going to do that. I don't think, because the difference from going from like why would the Titans want 1 year of a washed Aaron Rodgers in the 7th pick when they can have 5 years of a cheap rookie contract? Like, ask that yourself. If you were the Jets and you had the number 1 overall pick, would you rather all these draft picks, or would you rather one draft pick in Aaron Rodgers at 41 years old, 42 years old? I can tell you right now, I'm going to take the young quarterback. It may not be a winner, may not hit. But that's what I would take. Cleveland's an interesting case. I do think Cleveland ends up trading out, and that's even with the Achilles injury to Deshaun Watson. I think what you're going to see is Cleveland's going to want to hit the reset button. And if they get offered a massive trade up by the Raiders, like I think is going to happen, I think Ben Johnson, Agnew, go to the Raiders, and their target is to go get Shedeur Sanders. I think it's going to be Ward number 1, Shedeur Sanders number 2 to the Raiders in a trade up. They give up 2, 3 first-round picks, whatever it is, to go up and get Shedeur. Browns got to eat 2 more years of Deshaun Watson dead cap. So they're just stockpiling picks, stockpiling picks, stockpiling picks. Who cares? And they'll go for a quarterback next year, 2026. If Deshaun Watson's sitting out the entire season, it's going to look a lot like this year. They're going to lose a lot of games. Julio. Matt Patricia for DC. No. Stop it. Stop that. No. I don't want it. Pump of Wall Street. But real talk, look at this list. We don't win a Super Bowl with any of these guys. The Jets are just so unserious. I'm tired of it, man. Look, I think Joe Brady's a really exciting name. I really do. I think Brian Flores with Josh McCown has this synergy of being, synergy is probably the wrong word. I would say the Flores-McCown pairing is a volatile pairing that could go one of 2 ways. It could have a very low floor where Flores just bitches up a storm and alienates everyone, and like even McCown's like, I'm out of here, or maybe Flores fires McCown or whatever. Like that could eventually happen. But they could also pop off and sky's the limit. Like we don't know what McCown could be. McCown could be the next, Sean McVay. Who knows? Could happen. Oreo says, forget the Super Bowl. I just want a winning record. Yeah, my whole stance on this friggin' team has been like, I understand people want Super Bowls and stuff. I'm cool being entertained. Just make me feel like I'm not wasting my Sundays. That's all I want. Rico says, I like Aaron Glenn, but Dan Campbell is such a huge personality and Ben Johnson's such a good offensive coordinator. It makes you wonder how much of it is the perfect situation like Saleh with the 49ers. I think that's a perfectly valid criticism of Aaron Glenn. Like, Aaron Glenn may be like Robert Saleh 2.0. Players coach, knows how to talk to people. Now, maybe Glenn is more serious in terms of like holding players accountable, where Saleh was more of like a let's play nice and prop people up. Not that I think Aaron Glenn tears people down, but I feel like I've seen more angry clips of Aaron Glenn, like holding people accountable. Manson, Ryan, I'm terrified of Grigson Flores combo. Grigson had these worst drafts, or had the worst drafts post luck. It's scary. Yeah, I don't like Grigson. I'm not a Grigson fan. I'll be the first to tell you if the Jets hire Grigson, Flores, and McCown, Grigson will be the weak link and may ultimately be the reason why that whole experiment fails. If he can't buy the right groceries for us to assemble a recipe, that's a big problem. Now, McAfee seems to think that things have changed around and a lot of people like, or they claim a lot of people like Grigson. Now, this could very well be like the Jets beat or the Jets putting things out there like, oh, so many people love him. Why isn't he getting interviews anywhere else? Valid criticisms. Hey, Stu. No Tomlin because I don't want to give up multiple ones and twos. We are 4 or 5 players away from being a playoff team. One good head coach and a quarterback that can run like Lance or Fields away from winning. I like the idea of Justin Fields next year. If Rodgers is not here, I'm a big Fields guy. Fields and Travis go at it. That's what I want to see. Najee says, I really like Glenn as head coach, but I think we need Flores for a true culture shift, and we could also get Uncle Josh back. I think Uncle Josh is the reason why I like Flores more than maybe I would. And I like Flores. I'm not like an anti-Flores guy at all. I like Flores. But McCown is the piece to me. Like, if you told me I could get Aaron Glenn and McCown, like, that might be the pairing that I would prefer. But you at least have a proven track record with Flores saying, okay, this guy won in Miami when expectations were lower. Exceeding expectations and then having some time to reflect on that, and then coach under Tomlin, coach under Kevin O'Connell. I think Flores is the right swing. Sarah, no one is trading for Rodgers. That is factual. No one's giving up anything for Rodgers. Matthew asks, wouldn't a candidate be like wondering what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers doesn't even know what he's doing yet? So is the GM and head coach going to be like, well, even if he wants to play, oh, well. So, yeah, it's going to be based on the head coach or the GM. Woody Johnson said he's going to let them, make that decision, which is exactly where it should lie. That decision should only be with them. But I think it's entirely possible they're like, hey, look, we're signing a 4 to 6 year contract. That's realistically what we're going to have to sign someone to. Head coach or GM. And Rodgers, realistically, is probably only playing 1 year. So you play the 1 year. If he says, hey, I'm coming back, you say, okay, cool. We got our bridge quarterback. Who knows? Maybe he balls out, and then you have to let the rookie sit for longer. Cool. Good problem to have. Or he stinks, and you get a high draft pick in 2026. Another good thing. Julio. I hate to say it, but it doesn't matter who we get if Woody doesn't change and allow this team to run themselves. It'll be the same old Jets. Dude, I'm trying to have some optimism. Like, Woody being here is like a wet blanket on this franchise. Really is. Wild Wave. After seeing Brian Daboll burn bridges, I don't want Flores. Yeah, are they like two sides of the same coin? Like offensive staff, defensive staff, both guys are kind of prickly. They learned under Belichick, so it just makes sense. I want to keep Devontae. Or you're just left with Garrett. And what on defense? So, look, I think Rodgers retires. I think Devontae's gone. And I want Ted McMillan in the draft. Right now. That's my who I would prefer. Why isn't Peterson being mentioned? Because he just flamed out in Jacksonville. Peterson as OC makes sense, I guess. Which is what JV is saying. I don't want him as head coach. OC I could probably live with. Wow, Jerome. Spielman, president of football operations. Agnew is GM. Glenn is head coach. Yes, sign me up yesterday. I'm on board. If Josh comes here, it should be as head coach. He's going to get sniped in 1 or 2 years, and then Flores has to pick a new offensive coordinator, which he has proven he cannot do. I'll be honest, this is a great problem for the Jets to have. I hope the Jets are so good that someone wants to steal Josh McCown away from us, and we offer him a fat fucking contract to never leave. We say, hey, sorry, you're our guy. Assistant head coach. Oh, wait, Flores is a jerk, and you're really coaching up the quarterbacks. Well, guess what, Josh? You're now the head coach. I would fire Flores if McCown gets us a quarterback. If McCown balls out enough to the point where someone else wants to steal him away as a head coach, this is a good problem to have. That is a good problem to have. Because I do think he'd be more inclined to stay with the Jets if the offer was on the table. We paid him a lot of money to be a backup. If you don't want Mike Tomlin as head coach, you don't know football. Go get him. I'll be honest, I don't particularly want to trade for him. And I think he probably needs some time off to reflect. So I think it's going to be a year. I think we're just going to miss him on the cycle. I think it's going to be next year that he gets moved. If he's not the head coach of the Steelers this year, I think he would want to take a year off. Wild Dogs. We have gone defensive head coach for the past 4 out of 5 cycles. Looking at how the Commanders are doing from a year turnaround, I would pay Kingsbury and see what he can do with Jordan Travis. So I really like Cliff. I'm a big Cliff fan. The issue with Cliff Kingsbury is he's currently getting paid like a head coach. Before he got fired from Arizona, he signed an extension. He signed as a head coach, $7.5 million a year through 2027. So if you're Cliff Kingsbury, would you rather be offensive coordinator for the offensive rookie of the year who just won his first playoff game and is on his rookie deal? Would you rather make $7.5 million a year being that offensive coordinator? Or would you rather, maybe make $10 million? Because that's what you have to do. You have to pay him more than what he's currently getting right now. And that's if he wants to take on the additional responsibility. If it were me, I would ride out the offensive coordinator gig till 2027 and then be like, look what I did with Jaden Daniels. And parlay that into another big contract. That would be the move. I don't think he's, I like him, but I don't think it's going to happen. Paris says, Mike Tomlin is really the only can't-miss candidate for the Jets. The Jets would have to give up some serious compensation, like this year's number 7 and a second-round pick next year. I wouldn't do that for Mike Tomlin. And maybe that's insane to think. But I think the Jets are going to get a blue chip prospect here. If I had to give up a first, I'd want to trade down. Because I don't think that... how many teams are trading a first for Mike Tomlin? And I feel like if they're going to trade him, they're going to want him out of conference. Although I guess it's up to whatever amount you want to give up. I don't know. I don't think it's happening. I don't think Jets are getting Tomlin. All right, boys and girls, I'm at the hour mark right here. Let's wrap this up. Boys and girls, if you have not done so already, and you want to help support the stream, help support the show, head over to BetUS. Get a 150% bonus match on your first deposit up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. I'll hide my picks for you right now. These are the Jets' opponents next year. You got our division rivals. Then you got the AFC North, the NFC South. Then you got a few stragglers thrown in there. You got the Broncos. You got the Cowboys. You got the Jaguars. How many games do you think the Jets win next year? What is our record? I don't think it's going to be very good. I'll be honest. I think Rodgers is going to retire. I think we're going to take our lumps next season. 5-12 is where I predict this is probably going to be. Boys and girls, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me. You know what? Look at this. See, here we go. Here's the piece that I meant to bring up earlier that I didn't bring up. Tomlin. Where is it? Boom. Tomlin has a no trade clause, which means he would have to want to come here. That's ultimately what it means. So we can still discuss would you trade for him. Grinch, Mob, Jets for life. Anything on Todd Monken. I really like Todd Monken. We interviewed him in 2019, and then we wound up choosing Adam Gase. So there's thoughts that maybe he's not interested because of that. The Jets just tend to piss off all the wrong people. That's what it seems like. Oreo asking, by the way, Ryan, what are your thoughts on Vrabel signing with the Patriots? Are we officially the worst team in the AFC East? Yeah, I mean, I would think so, right? Like, Mike McDaniel's a really good offensive mind. Vrabel, I think, is a very smart coach. I think Vrabel right now is the smartest coach in our division. And then the Bills are juggernauts. So yeah, we're easily the worst team in the AFC East right now. And I don't even think that's debatable. Boys and girls, like I said, I'm going to go wrap this up. I appreciate you guys hanging out and talking some ball with me. We'll see what happens. I'll be back here tomorrow with Dom. We got the playoff game we'll be watching. We're talking some Jets. And then I'll do my call-in show, the official, actual call-in show tomorrow. And I'll get your thoughts on everything that went on, all the rumors and crazy stuff from out the weekend and where we are today. So, boys and girls, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to leave this on an ad.
Just because some of my takes may stink doesn't mean you guys have to stink. And that's where the sponsor of today's video comes in. Mando reached out and said, Ryan, your team has stunk for a very long time, so we know that you understand what stinking is. And I said, yeah, absolutely. They're like, so bad, in fact, that we think we can smell you through the camera. And I was like, man, that's very aggressive. Thank you. But what do I got to do? They're like, hey, we're going to send you out some product. We want you to test it out. We want you to be honest with your audience. And then if you like it, offer up a promo code. I was like, all right, cool. So they sent me out the starter pack. I got the Mount Fuji deodorant. Really enjoy that. Put that on every day. In the summer, I've got what is known as a chafing problem, like two chestnuts over a roasting fire type problem. This stuff can be put on anything. Your feet, your butt crack, your grundle, your armpits, your hands, boobies, rolls, under boobies, anywhere. This stuff is totally safe. And throwing this on the chafing areas, very, very appreciated. It comes with 2 free gifts as well. I chose the bourbon leather body wash. Becca has really liked that, but I think my favorite thing in the pack is honestly the deodorant wipes. I throw this in my to-go bag and I can just freshen up no matter where I am throughout my day. And maybe I was just yelling at a camera underneath some hot lights and I just need to look a little bit nicer, smell a little bit nicer when I walk out of the cockpit here. So Guys, if you want to get in on this, I've really enjoyed it. Shopmando.com, promo code JetsTalk. That's shopmando.com, promo code JetsTalk is going to get you $5 off. That's a 40% off savings on their starter pack. Thank you so much for sponsoring the channel.
One, two, three.